Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for your support and thank you for your decency in the comments section. Okay, let's settle an argument here and let's do it via the various explanations and various official documents so that people can no longer argue in the comment section. And people, take a tip from me, if Elon Musk says something, do not bet against him. He himself had either studied it or his lawyer has. Anyway, can the king dissolve Parliament? We are going to take the opportunity to answer that by looking at a complete summary of the king's role, his powers and his job. The king has limited power over government, but is still a central figure in the country's political system. The king or queen appoints the Prime Minister and other ministers as well as senior judges and officials. The monarch usually appoints the leader of the party that has a majority in the House of Commons after an election as Prime Minister. The monarch gives royal assent to bills passed by Parliament, which then makes it law. Prerogative powers. The king has the power to exercise the royal prerogative, which includes conducting foreign affairs, making treaties, and declaring war. However, the monarch usually acts on the advice of the Prime Minister or his cabinet. The monarch performs ceremonial roles as head of the nation, such as speaking to the nation during times of celebration or crisis. The monarch is the head of the armed forces and is responsible for their deployment. The monarch is the head of the Church of England. The monarch is exempt from criminal and civil proceedings as head of state. So, let's go back to the royal prerogative. Now, please people, before I give you a shortened version of what the rule and law books say about royal prerogative, let me make it very clear that I know, K-N-O-W, know and understand that prerogative powers are powers which in modern times are exercised largely by government ministers or at the request of government ministers and or the Prime Minister. However, it does not mean those powers and prerogatives do not exist anymore. Now here's the list. Not a la bookworm, but a la the Commons Library. I have just summarized it, so here goes. And note, this was updated after 2011. Executive, legislative, and judicial powers. The power to dissolve Parliament, the power of mercy, the power to grant passports, the power to make diplomatic appointments, the power to hire and dismiss public servants, the power to administer and dispose of public land, the power to grant copyright, the power to grant armorial bearings, honours and titles. The royal prerogative is mostly exercised on the advice of government ministers. However, some powers remain that the monarch can exercise directly, such as the dissolution of Parliament or the power of mercy. So, my dears, I'm not going to go into the entire history because not only is it complicated, but also sometimes contradictory, as you will even hear in my summary. But from what I could see, taking a quick look, the last time a monarch dissolved Parliament without the request or consultation with ministers was when William the Fourth dismissed Prime Minister Melbourne and appointed Peel as Prime Minister in 1834. So indeed, although kings and queens have not done so for ages, as it clashes with certain aspects of the British Constitution, specifically the dissolution of Parliament, as in 2011, the Fixed Term Parliaments Act regulates the dissolution of Parliament. Okay? And the norm is that where there is conflict between the prerogative and the statute prevails. But even the laws, rules of conduct, and Parliament itself accept that extraordinary circumstances can arise, like in times of war and or human rights violations, where the monarch then can accept advice from the Cabinet or Parliament or the Privy Council or from senior judges, and it all jointly or separately can be accepted equally as constitutionally correct and acceptable. So there you go. A British monarch's main role is to protect his subjects from government, and the exceptional circumstances regarding the RAPE gangs, in my opinion, does constitute human rights violations. Anyway, guys, you can go wade through this again or consult the Commons Library online and find the truth for yourself, because I want to move on. And if you hear some noise in the background, that is yellow dog Akira. She's right here at my feet today. She got a talking to and now she's sulking. Anyway, and today I want to talk to you about something which does not make sense to me at all. To make matters worse, I could not find two publications telling the exact same story. Now, just to clarify the situation, we know that the monarch's sovereign grant is directly linked to the income of the Crown Estate. The Crown Estate has the right of ownership of, among many other properties all over Britain and Wales, also of Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. However, whereas the Crown Estate effectively manages all the other properties in their vast portfolio, the royal household manages the properties the royal family resides in or occupy, like Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. Okay, so in 2015 to 2016, the Royal Trustees agreed to an additional 10% increase in the sovereign grant to fund the resurfacing of Buckingham Palace over a period of 10 years. Now, for my first question, why on earth would refurbishment have to take years? And I mean 10 years. Entire multi-story apartment buildings only take 2 to 3 years. Why should Buckingham Palace take 10? Okay, they said the palace is open to the public from July, and this year it will be the 10th of July to October. This year, to be specific, the 28th of September. There's just under 3 months. East Wing exclusive guided tours normally run from January to May. So the excuse is that they cannot work on the East Wing for 4 months of the year and the rest of the palace for just under 3 months out of 12, as the work comes to a standstill during July, August, September. Now, because of this 3 months out of the 12 months of the year, the work is now supposed to take 10 years. Well, if you can't work anywhere else, then, work in the East Wing those 3 months and work everywhere else the rest of the year. But, no. Work stops July to October. Anyway, I guess the palace is a public or semi-public place and not like a private home, but I am still a little baffled. Anyway, let's look at the supposed work to be done. So, the palace have 37 members of staff who live on the premises and many more working in offices and household staff who come in on a daily basis. So they started off building temporary housing and office space for 125 people. All the artifacts in the East Wing has to be removed and placed in a safe place, and there are about 3,000 artifacts in the East Wing alone, some of which are completely priceless. In some places, the wiring and piping can only be reached by lifting the floorboards, and some of the floorboards need replacing. Old electrical wiring needs to be replaced, and about 6,500 electrical sockets will be replaced. About 5,000 light fixtures need to be repaired or replaced or rewired. Plumbing will be upgraded, heating pipes need to be renewed, and many radiators need replacing, i.e. 12 in the ballroom alone. Some old furnaces will be replaced, solar panels will be installed to cut energy bills, and accessibility will be improved. They will be adding at least 2 more wheelchair ramps. They will also replace 1 or 2 of the old elevators. Now look, I did building maintenance in a city called Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal, and even with say 3 months a year off, I still do not quite get why it should take 10 years. But let's look at the cost or predicted cost, because no one can quote or tender a set price over such a long period of time. The inflation rate in November 2024, for instance, was 2.6%, but between September 2022 and March 2023, Britain had 7 months of double-digit inflation, like 11.1% in October 2022. The estimated cost was given as £369 million, or then more or less $464 million. So in November 2017, it was announced that the Queen's sovereign grant will increase from 15% to 25%. Now remember, the sovereign grant is a percentage of the Crown Estate's profits. At the time this was announced, the Queen's grant was paid 2 years in arrear, so she only received the increase in 2019. But never mind. The 10% increase meant that the Queen's income rose from about £42.8 million to £82 million in 2019. Okay, so on the surface, the mathematics actually work out, because 40 million extra for renovations over 10 years equal 400 million pounds. So the 369 million plus change. But that is not quite how it worked out, is it? You see, the Crown Estate's holdings increased. So in the 2022-2023 book year, Charles received 86.3 million pounds. With the extra income from the 6 offshore wind farms, which is worth about £1 billion, Charles, his Privy Council and Parliament decided to fix his sovereign grant after paying out 86.3 million in the 21 to 22 book year, and then again 86.3 in the 22 to 23 book year. And in the 23 to 2024 book year, it then remained the same amount and will still remain so for the 2024-25 book year. But it will increase to about 124 million pounds in the 2025 to 2026 year, and it is predicted that it will increase to 126 million pounds in 2026 to 2027. So, as I said, my mathematics are not good, but I mean, let's do the normal adding and subtracting, okay? 86 million is already 4 million more per year than estimated is needed for the renovations. So if we add up 4 million over 4 years, it calculates to 16 million more than the Queen received. I guess one could say, hey, you know, it's there to cover inflation. Except there is a report of sorts out on the progress of the renovations, and the report tells us that after 5 years of renovations, the East Wing is now fully restored and was reopened for guided tours in groups of 20 as from the end of July. These tickets come at a rather hefty price of £75 per person, an amount I would not pay to visit any wing, never mind the East Wing of Buckingham Palace. Well, I mean, that is because it's over 1,700 rand locally, but allegedly the tours were and still are fully booked. And remember, the King's remuneration is linked to Crown Estate income. So the more money they make, the more he will earn, as from and including the 2025-2026 book year. Anyway, I digress. In the construction briefing dated July 2024, it is stated that 82% of the work has been completed, and that they have only used 65% of the budget. Okay, so that means there was a saving of 17%. Am I right or am I wrong? Well, I think I'm right, so here is the crux of the matter. The King has more than one revenue stream. There is the sovereign grant, the privy purse, which is his income from the Duchy of Lancaster, and his private income from Balmoral and Sandringham estate, amongst others, which we'll talk about sometime next week. Okay, so where did the money of that 17% savings go? Answer: to the King's back pocket. that is where. So let's add up 4 million over 4 years plus the 17% saving. That, I think, is a fair amount of money. Only in my opinion. Maybe in your world, 50+ million pounds is nothing. Small change, or your kids' pocket money. Okay, I'm only joking. I do not think Elon Musk even scoffs at 50 million pounds, or then 10 million or so extra per year. But wait, guys, that's not all. Bonnie King Charlie is indeed saving. He is no longer paying Andrew £250,000 per year, no longer paying Harry 2.5 million per year. Allegedly, I personally do not believe it. He's also no longer paying William, because William is now getting income from the Duchy of Cornwall, which is another 2.5 to 4 million the king now has for himself. Now, these wages, I believe, were paid from the privy purse, but we'll talk about that later. For now, we are going to stick with the money the king is making from Buckingham Palace renovations. Okay, guys, listen, I'll be back later with some more news. So until then, please, guys, look after yourself and stay safe. Bye.